Talking about Tolkien, Ben.
Yes, we are.
How's it going?
I've actually got a minor, I don't want to say gripe with this chapter, but we're covering chapter 4 of The Hobbit, Over Hill and Under Hill. And, well, Nate, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you tell us what's going to happen in this chapter?
They're going through the Misty Mountains, and just like the Lost Woods from Zelda, there's a lot of different paths, but most of them don't go anywhere. So luckily we have a combination of Elrond's knowledge from the last chapter and Gandalf just remembering how to get through. We're going to get through okay, Ben. We're going to pick the right path.
To be fair, the challenge that faces our adventurers is not that they picked the wrong path.
It's that the wrong pack picked them.
Kind of. Well, it's that Fili and Kili are not thorough.
Hey, they checked out that cave after Fili and Kili got in there.
So it's raining. It's a miserable journey up the mountain.
Yeah, it's a thunder battle, and there's stone giants playing catch, and apparently football is a thing in Middle-earth. Thorin mentions it. Yeah.
Well, so is golf. The hobbits invented it.
Well, yeah, but
that was back in chapter 1.
I mean, come on.
It's golf. Anyone could have invented that. The Scottish invented that.
Yeah, it's not really a sport, but you know, you
I guess
pretend.
we should talk about the Thunder Giants a little bit. I don't actually have them in my notes, and I definitely should.
Yeah, what the hell is wrong with you?
So,
I remember they were in the movie, and I was like, those were actually in the book. I remember that.
Yeah, the weird thing is, this is one of those places where the Hobbit does not really fit in with the rest of the Legendarium, and you can kind of tell, because I don't think giants ever appear again.
Ben, why not?
Because
they're just fun-loving mountain thunder giants, okay? They throw boulders around for fun, and then they take a long nap.
Yeah, so the natural question about the giants would be like, where were the giants during the War of the Ring?
They were on their mountain playing football.
Yeah, and there's only 2 of them, I think.
What's the Witch King gonna do when you're like 30 feet tall? Nothing. Witch King, just leave them alone. They'll leave you alone.
So they're like bears. You just you make your presence known. You make your presence known. You walk past. But yeah, I think that's why I don't have a lot of notes about giants, because they're not really supposed to be there, and they don't have any bearing on the larger universe or story, and that's actually probably interesting in and of itself. That the Hobbit, the Hobbit is not actually intended to be a prequel for Lord of the Rings. But yeah, so while the Thunder Giants are going nuts, there's not much you can do. You're just ducking boulders and trying to stay out of the rain. And so they send Fili and Kili to scout ahead to find if there's anywhere to camp for the night.
Yeah, and they find a nice cave, Ben. I don't know why you're harping on them so much.
Did you check the cave?
Of course we did. It's a cave. It's not very deep. We're good.
You went all the way to the back of the cave?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did, didn't they? And then when they got there, Gandalf was like, "Let's be sure." Just like I trust you guys, right? But like we're gonna just do our own search. You know, like I'm sure you did a really good job, guys. But like we're also gonna look, right? We're just gonna double and triple check your work.
Yeah, the gang's gonna roll to check for traps.
Yeah.
And they don't find any.
Yeah. No, it's a harmless cave. It's a harmless cave. Let's not post any lookouts, though. Everyone goes to sleep at the same time. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Like every like Tolkien, every good DM knows when they get a little too used to long resting after every fight. Well, if you didn't post a lookout,
Yeah.
maybe the door opens up in the back.
Yeah, Bilbo dreams of a crack in the back of the cave just getting wider and wider, and he wakes up in time to see the last tail of one of those delicious ponies disappearing inside. And then he has time to scream just as 6 goblins per dwarf rush out, which I call bullshit. That's too many players on the field. What is the ref doing, right? Like, 1 to 1.
Offsides. Too many men on the ice.
Yeah, seriously. But, yeah, the ref just let it go, and they grab everyone except Gandalf apparently has access to a lightning spell, because when they go for him, bright light, smells like gunpowder, all the goblins are dead, Gandalf GTFO.
So this is my one minor gripe with this chapter. And
yeah,
I know
he should have used the Force to throw them like he did in the movies, right?
It sounds to me like Gandalf has a flashbang. And I know technically Gandalf makes fireworks. We all know that, right? So like Gandalf could have a flashbang.
But it would have it killed the goblins. It didn't just disorient them. They were
okay.
down.
Well, maybe it was a flashbang with a little bit of like screws and nails in it. You know, maybe Gandalf's
a little bit of a war criminal.
He's got IEDs strapped under those robes. He's ready to fight. And the second problem I have is that I think Gandalf used a grenade. And Bilbo knows what gunpowder smells like.
Yeah. I don't see what the problem is, Ben. Gandalf has lit off fireworks before. Those probably smell like gunpowder, and he has a concept for what that is. Do they have guns in Middle-earth?
No, they do not have guns.
Like, do they?
Though, it's interesting. So finish the summary real quick, because we'll get into some of the machinery.
So now we're going to Goblin Town, Ben. There's a whole song about that, both in the movie and in the book, as they drag the dwarves through Goblin Town, and they whip them. They whip them, Ben. So goblins are wicked, they do wicked things. They invent torture devices. They hate everything. And then, oh yeah, they also mentioned, Ben, did we talk about this already? Like on the actual episodes, they talk about goblins have been spreading in secret since the Battle of Moria.
We might have mentioned it just a little bit in the first episode, but yeah, goblins are still around. And they're just slowly spreading through the mountains now that the dwarves aren't there to stop them.
Yeah, what are the dwarves doing? That was their job, Ben. We called the dwarf exterminators. They didn't complete the job. And then the Goblin King, he is larger than other goblins, but interesting to note, he doesn't have a ball sack on his chin, Ben.
Yes.
They never mention a big, droopy ball sack just flopping in the wind like they had in the movie. Yeah,
the goblins are orcs. I mean, I've mentioned that before.
Yeah, it almost sounds like they're smaller orcs. My next chapter summary has orcs are big goblins ?
Yeah, so we will talk about that in the next chapter, but I think that was added in the second edition.
Because he does mention orcs a lot, yeah.
He mentions them once in that chapter. And I think we all know what happened was The Hobbit was written as an independent children's book. It was not intended to have a sequel. He had not conceived of Lord of the Rings. He had an idea for the Silmarillion, but he borrowed heavily from the Silmarillion stuff. And in doing so, he decided to use Goblin. He talks in the letters a little bit about the choice to use Goblin. And basically he calls it a translation choice, where like the actual Eastron or the actual Westron word he's translating Goblin to is or translating Goblin from, it's different, but you wouldn't know what it is. So he calls them goblins. He also says, the elves aren't really like elves. They're just
Okay. Again, you can always just blame Bilbo. This is Bilbo's book. He didn't know that they were called orcs.
He does blame Bilbo for the next chapter. We'll talk about blaming Bilbo. There's a whole preface at the start of every version of The Hobbit since the first edition that says, Bilbo lied. Chapter 5 actually went like this.
Wow.
So they meet the Goblin King.
You're him, aren't you? You're the Goblin King.
He's like... And Thorin's like, yo, we're gonna visit my extended family?
I really love your characterization of Thorin. Yo, Holmes. You're like that 90s hip hop guy that never existed. He's not a real person, but somehow that stereotype just entered the collective consciousness.
So,
yo, Thorin, at your service. West Moria, born and raised. On the playground was where I spent most of my days.
I'm gonna go visit my Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv on the other side of the Misty Mountains, dog. Just let us pass. We won't trouble you anymore. And the goblin's like, yeah, counterpoint. You killed my men with gunpowder. I know what that is. And also, you got Biter. It's that sword Orcrist, but we just call it Biter because we're dumb goblins. That's right. And so,
Well, and then Thorin's like, keep my sword's name out your mouth.
And then the lights go out, and Orcrist stabs the Goblin King. Was that Thorin or was that Gandalf?
Well, Thorin had Orcrist.
So Gandalf turns out the light, and Thorin stabs the king in the face. Gandalf has Beater. That's the name of the other one.
Yeah, Gandalf has Glamdring.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, guys, we gotta bail. We gotta bail on out of here. That's what I'm really good at, is getting the fuck out of situations I don't want to be in. I'm Gandalf. Let's go. And no one is like, what about the ponies? Because Gandalf would have been like, what about the ponies? And
look, what am I going to do? Grab a pony? Yeah. Ride it out of here in the dark? The ponies are dead. I'm sorry, they're dead. The ponies are going to be eaten. J.R.R. Tolkien explicitly spells this out in his children's book. I'm sorry if your kids liked the ponies. They were adorable, and the goblins are going to eat them, probably face first, as is the goblin way. And you're just going to have to try not to imagine that as you fall asleep.
Yeah, don't imagine that one really weird goblin that's going to peel the face off the pony and wear it like a mask, okay?
Look. If the ponies are very, very lucky, the goblins will kill them first.
Yeah. And won't make them watch the other ponies be eaten in front of them.
Well, I mean, they're going to know. They can't kill them all at exactly the same time. At least one pony is going to see another pony go down. I did wonder if Tolkien maybe felt a little bad about this pony situation in Lord of the Rings, and that's why Bill the Pony gets like such a moment.
Well, this isn't Pony of the Rings or Lord of Ponies, so yeah, they're down.
Gandalf, the thing is,
doors escape.
Shadowfax was Lord of Horses, right? So there's got to be a Lord of Ponies.
Well, hopefully it's not one of these 14 ponies. Maybe that's why the Age of Ponies wasn't the fourth age, Ben.
Oh, no.
Goblins got him first. So they get out of there. Someone's got to carry Bilbo. He's not that fast compared to a dwarf, even though he was able to run several miles in less than 10 minutes. Dwarves are apparently even faster than that. And
Natural sprinters, deadly over short distances.
even Bomber, even gigantic
Especially
Bomber.
Bomber. My
He's got all
man's
those reserves.
athletic.
He's got all those reserves of energy just stored in all that fat, ready to be released, Ben.
Thorin is a quarterback.
I can relate.
Bomber is a tight, or Bomber is a center. Yeah, he's the center. So like Bomber, he's got a lot of explosive force. Like right off the ball, he's right in that guy's face. You can't even see him move. He's so fast. That's what Bomber does. Now, after 5 or 6 steps, Bomber's chest is going to be getting a little tight. Got to eat some bacon, lubricate the veins. But for those 5 seconds,
I guess the dwarves take turns on who carries Bilbo, because at the end it is Dory. So they're running. The goblins are fast behind them, and eventually they round a corner, and Gandalf and Thorin turn around and draw their goblin killing weapons. And the goblins round the corner and just get massacred. And goblins don't want to round that corner for a long time. And by the time they have enough bravery and courage to do it, the gang's already gone. So finally they're like, all right, we're going to send our stealthiest runners with our stealthiest shoes. We call them sneakers. And we're going to have those goblins sneak up on and grab those dwarves. And they attack Dory, who drops Bilbo, presumably directly on his head because he loses consciousness for several hours. He's got his brain got rocked pretty hard. His brain is not doing very well right now. And that's the end of the chapter, Ben.
this is obviously a pretty short chapter. Not a lot happens plot-wise. They're captured by the goblins. They're taken in front of the Goblin King. They manage to make their escape.
Doesn't have a testicle chin. Okay.
Doesn't have a testicle chin. But in the escape, they lose Bilbo. That's where the chapter ends. But
And
I
they
did
never
want to
go
call...
looking for him.
I did want to call your attention to something that is going to be a bit of a seed I want to plant in your brain as we go into Lord of the Rings. Because this is proper, like, theming and really kind of critical to what Tolkien thought about the world. So I'm going to read a quote. This is from the chapter. Now, goblins are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted. They make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones. They can tunnel and mine as well as any but the most skilled dwarves, when they take the trouble, though they are usually untidy and dirty. Hammers, axes, swords, daggers, pickaxes, tongs, and also instruments of torture they make very well, or get other people to make their design. Prisoners and slaves that have to work till they die for want of air and light. It's not unlikely that they invented some of the machines that have since troubled the world, especially the ingenious devices for killing large numbers of people at once. For wheels and engines and explosives have always delighted them, and also not working with their own hands more than they could help. But in those days, and in those wild parts, they had not advanced, as it is called, so far. As soon as I read that passage, I was like, I wonder what Tolkien would think about AI art.
It's the tool of the enemy, Ben.
Yeah, you think that's an orc invention, AI art?
Yeah, the goblins have created a machine to make your artisans obsolete, Ben. They want to make it so that you can't make a living as an artist, and so you have to, I don't know, starve to death? Is that what you do? I don't know. Dwarves, okay, dwarves like Thorin,
crypto,
right?
Is crypto the answer?
Yeah, dwarves like Thorin, okay, they were once kings, but they got kicked out of their mountain, and then they came to the cities, and they worked as blacksmiths, you know, it wasn't like thrilling work, right? But now we've got an AI to work as the blacksmith, and so Thorin can't get a job, Ben.
Yeah, so now Thorin is free to go die in a field somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe he can mint Orcrist as an NFT?
Yeah.
Are those words that go together?
Yeah. He can mint the most powerful of NFTs, Ben. One NFT to rule them all.
Yeah, so I'm going to read to you a quote from one of Tolkien's letters. In this letter, he's talking about the elves and their relationship with technology and knowledge. The particular branch of the High Elves concerned, the Noldor, or Lore Masters, were always on the side of science and technology, as we should call it. They wanted to have the knowledge that Sauron genuinely had, and those of Eregion refused the warnings of Gil-galad and Elrond, that particular desire of the Eregion elves, an allegory, if you like, of a love of machinery and technical devices, is also symbolized by their special friendship with the dwarves of Moria. I should regard them as no more wicked or foolish, but in much the same peril, as Catholics engaged in certain kinds of physical research, e.g., those producing, if only as byproducts, poisonous gases and explosives. Things not necessarily evil, but which, things being as they are, and the nature and motives of the economic masters who provide all the means for their work being as they are pretty certain to serve evil ends, for which they will not necessarily be to blame, even if they're aware of them.
God, the World War One is over. Get
World War II is just
over
getting
it
going.
already. God.
He's comparing the elves to the people who make the weapons of mass destructions because they've gotten too greedy. They were so obsessed with whether or not they could, they didn't think about whether or not they should. And there are wise people telling them, like, stop. It's not worth it. We don't need technology if it means creating these things. And he's always telling stories, be it the Silmarillion or the Lord of the Rings, about someone succumbing to their own invention, about the mechanical creations destroying the people who made them. And I know he hates allegory, and he doesn't want to talk about allegory, but he will also constantly throughout his life compare people who are focused on producing things, I would say, without skill or art as orcish.
Wow.
He prefers beautiful things made by hand. And factories, industrialization, weapons, basically the modern age. The fact that we're making this on a podcast with myriad machines, talking about his work, it probably would not suit him very well at all. I don't think I'm a programmer. I don't even think he'd like anything I do.
No, he doesn't.
But speaking of World War I being over, I got one more quote to sort of support my theory. And this is a letter he wrote to Christopher while Christopher was stationed in Africa during World War II. So World War I's over. You're right. Now we're in the sequel. And he closes the letter to Christopher by saying, "We are attempting to conquer Sauron with the ring, and we shall, it seems, succeed. But the penalty is, as you will know, to breed new Saurons, and slowly turn men and elves into orcs. Not that in real life things are as clear-cut as in a story, and we started out with a great many orcs on our side. Well, there you are, a hobbit amongst the Uruk-hai."
Okay.
So already, his observation is that the allies are failing to uphold the moral high ground, that they have seized the weapons of evil to gain their victory, and though they may win, they're going to lose something of themselves in the process. New Saurons will rise, and men and elves will turn into orcs.
Okay.
Okay, like it, orcs. So we're still winning,
Okay.
right?
All right. Yeah. I mean,
But yeah, that's that. The reason I mention all that now is because there's not a ton to do with orcs in The Hobbit. We're definitely going to talk about that more when we talk about The Lord of the Rings, because that is very heavily what The Lord of the Rings is about. But it's pretty clear, even in this book he wrote for children, that he was already thinking along those lines, and he was sort of trying to impute that moral lesson.
Well, guess what? Lesson not learned. Bye.
Technically, I guess. Yeah. I read this when I was 14 and I became a programmer, so yeah. All right.
Well, look. In our defense, when we tried to make something beautiful by hand, we made Edenverse, okay? So we tried and we failed, and now
we
what
were,
do we got
we
left,
were
buddy?
orcs the whole time, brother. Oh man, yeah. So keep that in your back pocket. Make a little mental note of the theme at play there, because it is a recurring one, and we will find out what happened to our young Master Baggins next episode on Talking About Tolkien.
He's gonna wake up and get a brain CT, and the doctor is gonna go, "Ooh, yeah, you need to just go home and rest for a few weeks, man."
CT is one of those goblin inventions, though, so
Yeah, you're
now
right.
Bilbo's corrupted.
So, should we also mention that if you want to get these episodes as they come out, you can go to our Patreon. For $3, you get all the episodes as they are edited and come out. You don't have to wait for the main feed.
It's true. It's exciting. I make them by hand
Yeah.
with great care and love.